My name is Alara Winslow. I am 31 years old, and I work as a heart and chest surgeon in Chicago. That means I fix people's hearts when they are very sick. But this story isn't about my work, it's about my family and how they treated me. The story begins at Mom's 53rd birthday party. I remember it very clearly. I was sitting at the table when the soup hit me. It was hot beef broth, and it splashed all over my face. The hot liquid dripped down from my hair onto the white tablecloth. My brother Dorian slammed his empty bowl on the table and snarled at me. "You have 15 minutes to leave this family," he said. Mom and Dad just stared at their plates, not saying a word. My little sister Leora clapped her hands like she was watching the best show in the world. I wiped my eyes, reached into my bag, and pulled out a thick folder. I dropped it on the table with a loud thump. The room went completely silent. "Fine," I said, my voice very cold. "In 15 minutes, everything you own disappears. If you've ever had a family turn on you, I want you to comment where you are watching from and hit subscribe. Stick around because it gets even worse." I grew up in Charleston, in a hot and humid place called the Low Country. We lived in an old wooden house right next to the Ashley River. The house had been creaky since the 1980s. The paint was peeling, and the big porch that went around the house sagged because of too many summer storms. My dad, Richard Winslow, worked as a construction engineer. That means he helped design and build buildings. He worked long hours and came home tired and dusty most nights. My mom, Patricia Winslow, taught 3rd grade at a local school. She always smelled like chalk and cafeteria pizza. I have 2 siblings. My brother Dorian came along when I was 4 years old. He was the middle child, and from the very start, he became the center of attention. He got the best of everything. Mom scraped together money for his private school tuition, bought him new sneakers every season, and even got him a used dirt bike for his 10th birthday. Mom would beam when he brought home a B- in school, saying he was just finding his way. Dad slapped him on the back every time he hit a ball in Little League, even when it wasn't very good. 6 years later, my little sister Leora was born. She was the baby of the family, and the favoritism shifted even more. By the time she started kindergarten, she went to a fancy school across town. They had uniforms and Latin classes. Mom drove her there every morning and packed organic lunches for her. I had to take the public bus with a peanut butter sandwich. When Leora had dance recitals, the whole family got front row seats. When I won science fairs, Dad barely noticed and went back to watching TV. Money flowed easily for Dorian's hobbies, guitar lessons, summer camps, even a part-time job at Dad's company that mostly meant hanging out. When he turned 16, Dad gave him a shiny red pickup truck from a bonus at work. When Leora turned 18, she got a white car with balloons and a cake shaped like a college diploma. I just watched from the sidelines, saving every paycheck from hospital shifts to pay for my own loans. Grandpa Harold Winslow, my father's dad, lived 20 minutes away in a small brick house. His house was full of old medical books and leftover medicine from when he worked in the pharmaceutical business. He had built a small company in the 1970s, making heart medicine for local clinics, and sold it for a good profit. Grandpa's mind stayed sharp even as his body slowed down. Dad visited Grandpa maybe twice a year, always rushing, saying he was busy with work. Mom sent birthday cards but skipped the actual birthdays, saying she had grading to do or school events. Dorian ignored Grandpa's invitations completely. He said he was too busy, even when Grandpa called him personally. Leora promised to visit after cheer practice, but always made excuses like studying or going to the mall. Grandpa never complained out loud, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes when nobody answered the phone. I always made the effort. Every month, no matter how busy I was with my residency in Chicago, I would fly down or drive 12 hours straight. We would sit on his back patio, drinking sweet tea, while he told me stories about his early experiments and patients he had helped. He would quiz me on anatomy, asking questions about the heart and body. When I answered correctly, he would nod in approval. "You've got the fire, Alara," he said quietly. "The others? They're just passing through." I thought it was just old man talk, but I never forgot it. When I was 25, Grandpa pulled me aside and gave me a faded photo of his first lab team. His hands shook slightly. "Keep pushing," he whispered. "Madison needs people who care more about saving lives than just living a fancy life." Dorian had skipped that visit for a beach trip, and Leora said she had a headache. Grandpa didn't say anything about them that day. Holidays were the worst. On Thanksgiving, Dorian carved the turkey like a king. Leora took selfies with the pies. Grandpa sat at the end of the table, picking at his food, while Dad told stories about work. Mom fussed over Dorian and Leora, refilling their glasses first. I helped clear the dishes, catching Grandpa's glance. He silently mouthed, "Thank you," when nobody was watching. Summers were the same. Dorian and Leora lounged by the river in new boats. Dad played blasting music that echoed over the water. Grandpa's fishing invitations went ignored, so I went with him instead. He taught me patience and precision, lessons that would help me in surgery later. "Details matter," he would say. "Skip them, and everything falls apart." By my late 20s, the pattern was clear. Dorian asked Dad for money for his ideas and got it without questions. Leora's college fund grew bigger, but I had to get scholarships on my own. Grandpa's health got worse. His heart problems were ironic for a man who had made heart medicine. Visiting him became my escape from the favoritism at home. He would greet me with a weak hug and eyes that lit up. "Tell me about your cases," he said. I described complicated heart surgeries. He listened carefully and asked questions, still keeping up with medicine. "Proud of you," he said every time. The others rarely visited. One rainy afternoon, Grandpa grabbed my arm as I was leaving. "Family isn't always the people you share blood with," he said. "It's the people who show up." I nodded, thinking about the empty chairs at his table over the years. I didn't know how much those words would matter later. 8 years into my tough residency in Chicago, the operating room became my battlefield. I worked on hearts with problems from birth, hearts that had been damaged for years. I thrived under pressure, stitching arteries while monitors beeped wildly. Colleagues called me relentlessly. Patients called me a miracle. The big moment came during a midnight shift. A 68-year-old CEO collapsed at a gala with a massive heart attack. His heart was failing fast. The attending doctor handed me the scalpel. I went from first assistant to lead surgeon when things got complicated. I cracked open his chest, bypassed 3 blocked vessels, and put in a temporary pump to keep him alive. 12 hours later, he was breathing on his own. The local news went crazy. "Young surgeon saves tech CEO." My picture was in the newspaper. Reporters camped outside the hospital. Interviews came on TV and medical podcasts. The CEO sent me a handwritten note saying, "You gave me a second chance." His company donated equipment to our cardiac wing. My name spread in boardrooms, and I got fellowship offers. My inbox overflowed with messages. I stayed focused on my work, not the attention. Back home, Dorian was chasing different things. At 23, he quit community college after 1 semester, saying school was a scam. He started pitching a new app called Health Track, which would track real-time vital signs. Investors liked it, and Dad co-signed a big loan. Dorian rented an office downtown and hired fresh developers. Leora, then 15, helped with photo ops, posing with the app. At first, things looked good. Demos impressed people. Beta users signed up. Dorian bought a condo with a view of the Battery and leased a Tesla on credit. "This is just the start," he texted our family. But cracks appeared fast. Coding delays happened, servers crashed, and competitors made cheaper versions. Investors wanted money, not designs. Dorian borrowed more against the app. Suppliers demanded payment. Staff quit because they weren't paid. By the second year, the $1.6 million was gone. A key partner left. Lawsuits followed for broken contracts. Bank statements went red. Overdraft fees piled up, and collection calls came. Dorian had to sell his condo at a loss. The Tesla was repossessed. He moved into a small studio, couch surfing when rent wasn't paid. Leora, now 19 and in her first year of college, felt the problems too. Tuition bounced. Dad covered 1 semester, and then ran out of money. She went to school part-time so she could save money and stayed with Dorian in his apartment. Dorian was her older brother. They shared a small apartment and ate takeout food together. Sometimes they argued about bills. Leora, their younger sister, worked at night as a waitress and sent some money home to help. Dorian promised to help every week, but things never worked out. They tried hard, but money was always tight. Grandpa Harold was getting very old and very sick. He used to give medicines to other people when he was healthy, but now he needed them himself. He spent more and more time in the hospital. He needed oxygen tanks all the time to help him breathe. I was far away, but I helped take care of him. I called his heart doctor many times between my work shifts to make sure he was okay. Dorian only sent boring get-well-soon messages on his phone. Leora posted sad emojis on social media. She didn't do much else. 3 years ago, Grandpa died quietly in his sleep. His monitors showed no heartbeat early in the morning. I flew down right away to help with everything. Dorian and Leora arrived late. The funeral was very small. Only a few of Grandpa's old friends and some neighbors came. Dad spoke a few words. Mom wiped tears from her eyes. Dorian kept looking at his phone. Leora was scrolling on hers, not really paying attention. After the funeral, a lawyer came to talk to me in the parking lot. Miss Winslow Clara said the papers were private and must only be given to me. The lawyer gave me a thick envelope with official papers inside. It said that only I, Elara Winslow, should see it. There were no details, just instructions to call the lawyer to schedule a meeting. I put it in my pocket. My mind was spinning. I didn't know what to do. Later, the family gathered at Grandpa's house. Dorian looked at Grandpa's watch collection. Leora looked at the old, delicate vases. Dad suggested maybe we should sell the house and split the money evenly. I stayed quiet. The envelope was heavy in my pocket. I kept thinking about what the lawyer said. It was meant only for me. I excused myself early, saying I had a flight delay. Back in Chicago, I opened the envelope alone. Inside were papers about Grandpa's things, company shares, and a trust. Some sections were sealed and required me to see them in person. It said clearly, "For your eyes only." I locked it in my safe and told no one. Weeks later, Dorian called, trying to find out if Grandpa had mentioned any papers. I made excuses about being busy with work. Dorian owed money to collectors every day. Leora moved to a school closer to Dorian's apartment and shared groceries with him. They asked Mom for help paying utilities and Dad for car insurance. I sent nothing. I had my own loans and bills. The secret in the envelope felt heavier with every phone call. My name became popular because of my surgeries and the time I saved a senator's wife. People offered me big jobs, research grants, and partnerships. I had to think about my future. The secret in the envelope stayed with me. Dorian's last project failed badly. His big presentation didn't work, and the investors left. He had to file for bankruptcy. He owed $1.6 million. Leora stopped going to school and worked as a barista to help pay for basics. They shared a tiny apartment, tension thick in the air. I quietly set up a meeting with the lawyer, booking a flight as if it were for work. The inheritance was my responsibility alone. My family didn't know. The lawyer called right after I finished a 22-hour work shift. My phone buzzed on my scrubs while I collapsed in exhaustion. I expected Dorian to ask for money again. Instead, he said, "Honey." I answered, "Hey sis, Mom's birthday is next weekend. Big party at the house. Everyone's coming. We're all so proud of you." Leora picked up the phone too. "Elara, you have to come. It wouldn't be the same without you, our star." Their excitement felt fake, but I was too tired to care. I said yes quietly. I slept fitfully. The next day at work, everything blurred by. Between patients, I went to Michigan Avenue. I went into a fancy watch store. I picked a slim gold watch for Mom. It had a simple face and a leather strap, very elegant. The clerk engraved, "To Mom with love," N on the back. I wrapped it in a box with a ribbon. It cost 2 of my paychecks, but it was worth it. Flights were expensive, so I decided to drive. It was a long 12-hour drive through cornfields and mountains. I packed a small overnight bag and some energy drinks. Podcasts about heart surgeries played while I drove. Chicago disappeared behind me. The miles passed by. Indiana flatlands became Kentucky hills. The radio stations changed from city music to country music. I stopped once for gas in Knoxville to stretch my legs. I thought about how Mom would feel wearing this watch, her first nice gift in years. Halfway through the drive, my phone buzzed. My friend Mara, an ER nurse, texted me. She said she heard that my siblings were asking about estate lawyers. She warned me not to go. They were trying to find out about Grandpa's money. I stared at the screen, my thumbs paused. Another message said Dorian had been named as CEO to lenders. It sounded like a trap. I stopped at a rest area to think. Mara had been with me since my first internship. She knew all the family drama. Her advice: trust your gut. Proceed, but watch carefully. I drove on through South Carolina. Sunset painted everything golden. Familiar exits came up, but I pushed memories away. I told myself to focus on the party and the gift, not the inheritance. I arrived after dark. The house had lights glowing, and there were more cars than I expected. I grabbed the watch box in my bag. Before I could knock, the door opened. Dorian smiled and hugged me. The hug lasted too long. Leora was giggling and taking selfies. Mom appeared in the kitchen, flour on her apron. "Elara, honey, you drove all this way?" she asked. I gave her the watch. She unwrapped it slowly, gasping as the gold shone. She put it on, her wrist sparkling. Dad nodded from the couch, beer in hand. Guests wandered around, including some from Dorian's failed business. Mara's warning echoed in my mind. Dorian took my arm, smiling. We have big plans for Mom's Day. Speeches, toasts. Leora poured sweet tea, ice clinking. Their smiles felt a little fake. I went upstairs to the guest room I had as a child. Posters were gone. I unpacked my bag and set the alarm for the early drive home. My phone charged, Mara's messages unread. Downstairs, laughter and barbecue smells filled the air. Mom smiled at the dessert table, the watch on her wrist. Dad flipped burgers. Dorian carried a tray of food, laughing loudly. Leora posed for photos, phone flashing. I got a plate and quietly ate. A neighbor came over. Your siblings are doing really well. Dorian said, Leora's adventure, Ilara's success. I nodded. I watched Dorian talk to a banker about new projects. Leora showed Europe brochures to her friends. Their excitement seemed real for them, but I stayed careful. Music started. Couples danced outside. I refilled my tea. Another relative came by. Your siblings are so proud of you, they said. Dorian whispered to Leora. Just keep her from interfering. She nodded, eyes on me. The fire pit crackled. Guests told stories about when we were kids. Mostly Dorian and Leora were the stars. I said little, just watching. Mom found me later. She hugged me tightly, thanking me again. Dad gave a small nod. Dorian pulled Mom for photos. Leora followed. Guests left slowly. I helped clean, folding tables, moving chairs, muscles sore from driving. Dorian clapped my back. Great having you here, sis. Leora hugged me too. Stay longer next time. Their smiles felt warm, but I noticed something hidden behind their eyes. Dorian lifted a big dish of food, Leora giggling beside him. I looked at Mom, her new watch shining under the lights. I felt happy for her, even though I knew the secret in the envelope was still mine alone. The night felt full of laughter, smells of barbecue, music, and stories. The sky above was dark with stars. The house glowed from inside, but I stayed alert, watching, thinking. My siblings seemed cheerful, but I remembered Mara's warning. I knew I had to be careful. The secret would stay with me until the right moment. As the fire crackled, I sat back and watched the family I loved, wondering what would happen next. I had worked so hard to get here, driving through the night, picking the perfect gift, keeping Grandpa's secret safe. I was tired but proud. Mom's eyes shone as she admired the watch. Dad smiled quietly. Dorian and Leora laughed together, still playful, still hiding their own thoughts. I realized something important. I had my own strength. I had my own life. Even if the money, the inheritance, and the family secrets were complicated, I could handle it. I had worked hard, saved lives, and made choices carefully. And tonight, for Mom's birthday, I could give her happiness. The stars twinkled above, the fire glowed, and the house buzzed with voices. I knew I would go back to my life in Chicago soon, to work, to patience, to saving hearts. But for now, I could watch quietly, carefully, and know that I had done something wonderful for the family I loved. Even as Dorian and Leora played and laughed, I held my secret close. I had to be patient, clever, and careful. This was my journey, my life, my responsibility. And though the night was full of smiles and laughter, I knew that soon I would have to face the future with my secret safe and the lessons I had learned keeping me strong. The rest of the guests went quiet. Everyone could feel something big was about to happen. It was like the air got heavier all of a sudden. He cleared his throat loudly, like an actor on stage, and made sure everyone was looking at him. Before we have dessert, he said slowly, I have a quick announcement. Everyone leaned in, curious. Grandpa left some money and shares of his medicine company for the whole family, he continued. But Ilara gets nothing. The room went completely silent. Forks froze in midair. Some people had just taken a bite of dessert. Their mouths opened and closed like fish out of water. Mom's smile disappeared instantly. Dad, who had been holding a beer, just set it down on the table and stared. I looked across the table at Dorian. Something felt very wrong. Grandpa never said it was for everyone. Dorian's face turned bright red. His eyes bulged. Are you calling me a liar? He shouted, his voice booming across the dining room. Suddenly, the tin of hot beef soup tipped over. It spilled all over my head. The hot liquid burned my scalp and ran down my neck, soaking my dress. Chunks of beef stuck in my hair, and steam rose up, smelling of broth and meat. People gasped loudly. Leora covered her mouth with her hands, eyes wide, pretending to be shocked. Dorian slammed the empty container down on the table, so hard that it rattled the plates. You have 15 minutes to leave this family, he yelled, pointing at me with anger flashing in his eyes. Leora stepped forward, smiling in that fake, sweet way she always did. Just accept it, sis, she said softly. You don't get any share. It's really simple. I wiped the soup off my lashes with a napkin. Then, with determination, I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick folder. I slammed it down in the center of the table. The sound made everyone jump, and the plates rattled loudly. Fine, I said, my voice firm. You have 15 minutes from now. I opened the folder. Inside was the notarized copy of Grandpa's will. I flipped it open to the right page and started reading aloud. I read slowly, so everyone could hear every word. I, Harold Winslow, bequeath my pharmaceutical company shares, valued at $3.5 million, and my trust fund of $1.8 million solely to my granddaughter Alara Winslow. She alone will continue my mission in heart medicine through her surgical practice. Those who showed indifference during my lifetime are explicitly excluded from any inheritance. Mom gasped and put her hand over her chest. Dad stared blankly, unable to speak. Dorian's mouth opened and closed like he had forgotten how to talk. Leora let out a little giggle, pointing at Dorian. See, it's all signed and notarized, she said, her voice dripping with mockery. No part for the cold-hearted. That's you, Dorian. A cousin leaned over to look at the pages closely. It's real, they whispered. Phones came out of my pockets. People started taking pictures of the document. Someone whispered, he really cut you out. Dorian lunged for the papers. I pulled them back quickly. Touch it, and it counts as tampering, I warned him. He froze, veins popping on his forehead. Leora tugged his sleeve. Do something, she hissed, her voice trembling. Dad finally spoke, his voice weak. Harold never mentioned this because you only visited twice in 5 years. Cards don't count as gifts, Dorian. He turned to Mom. She looked away, her fancy watch catching the light. The guests shifted uncomfortably. One aunt muttered, I guess that explains all the favoritism stories. Another nodded. Alara was always there for Grandpa. She really cared. Dorian's fists were clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. This can't stand. Lawyers will contest this and we'll take what's ours, he shouted. I tapped the paragraph with my finger. Any challenge, Dorian, I said calmly, and you lose everything forever, even if you thought you had a claim. Leora's eyes darted toward the exits. But we need, she started. Assumptions cost money and opportunity, I said, cutting her off. The soup was cooling on my skin, sticky and uncomfortable, but the tension in the room was so thick it felt like it could be cut with a knife. People were secretly recording on their phones. A neighbor had even started live-streaming the moment. Comments popped up on the screen, gossiping about what was happening. I pointed to the date on the will. It was signed 6 months before Grandpa passed away, and it was updated after Dorian missed another birthday. Dorian roared. You hid this private designation. Lawyer's orders, I said simply. You made the first announcement. Silence is required now. Broth dripped from my hair onto the tablecloth, leaving red stains. Nobody moved to help. A guest whispered, Congrats, Alara. You really deserve it. A few sparse claps followed. Dorian's glare could have melted steel. Leora leaned toward him, whispering something. He shook her off angrily. Clocks are ticking, I said. I pulled 3 stapled packets from my inner pocket and spread them on the table like a deck of cards. Packet 1 was from the IRS. It had Dorian's name and taxpayer ID at the top. It listed deductions that were completely fake, $680,000 for marketing with 0 invoices, $420,000 for equipment that was never delivered. It showed a civil fraud penalty of 75% and a criminal referral pending. I explained calmly, Your bankruptcy lawyer forwarded this to me when I asked. Now it's public record. Dorian ripped it open, shouting, They can't prove it. Prove it. Packet 2 was a single page from the trust, highlighted in bright yellow. It said, If anyone contests this trust, they forfeit all rights to any benefit here and are responsible for all legal fees. The notary seal showed it was dated 3 months after the will. Grandpa had added this after Dorian skipped another visit. Leora's lips trembled. So if we sue, we get nothing and have to pay all costs, she said softly. Packet 3 was 38 pages from the bank. It showed a debt of $1,600,000 transferred to me, Alara Winslow. My signature and the bank VPs were notarized. The default triggered foreclosure of his condo, his car, and everything else that had been collateral. Dorian screamed and threw the papers. They flew through the air like confetti. Leora sank to her knees. Mom whimpered quietly. This is cruel, Mom said. This is the consequence, I replied firmly. A guest whispered. She bought his bankruptcy. Dorian bolted toward me. I stepped behind the grill for safety. At that moment, 2 officers appeared at the gate. A sergeant and another uniformed officer. Welfare check, the sergeant said, looking around. I nodded. Caller, all evidence is right here, I told him. Dorian jabbed a finger at me. She attacked me, he shouted. The sergeant looked at my soup-covered hair and then at Dorian's clean shirt. No marks. This is a civil issue, not criminal, he said. Leora clutched the trust copy. We'll be homeless by Friday, I reminded her. Dad helped Mom inside. Guests faded into the shadows. Dorian kicked the table again, cracking the wood. Cuffs flashed in the light. Last warning, the officer said. Dorian froze. Leora's voice broke. Please, she whispered. The next day, the yard was cleared. Lights went out. Ember was dead. I zipped my bag and left. 4 months later, the foreclosure notice was taped to Dorian's door. The red stamp glared under the porch light. The auction followed. The condo sold for pennies. Chapter 7 bankruptcy was filed. Debts were discharged except for the IRS lien. Dorian rented a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin. The washer vibrations never stopped. He was miserable. Leora quit college in the middle of the semester. Tuition was unpaid. Credits were frozen. She worked full shifts at a coffee shop downtown. Her apron was stained, and her tips were small. She smiled at customers even when she was exhausted. Her dreams of going to Europe slowly disappeared, replaced by counting inventory all day. Mom and Dad sent a handwritten letter in an envelope scented with old perfume. Pages full of apologies. They said they were sorry for being blind to the truth. I read it once by the fireplace and fed it to the flames. Ashes scattered on the rug. I didn't reply. The pharmaceutical shares, worth $3.5 million, transferred to me without problems. I was offered a seat on the company's board and accepted remotely. Profits helped expand heart research. The trust fund of $1.8 million was liquidated. I used the money to start the Harold Winslow Scholarship Fund. It gave full scholarships to low-income students in South Carolina. The first students were from Charleston Public Schools. Their essays talked about Grandpa's love for helping people access good care. I blocked every number Dorian tried to call from a burner phone. I ignored Leora's calls. I changed the locks on my condo and upgraded security. I deleted contacts, photos, and group chats. I had a clean slate. My colleagues noticed I was different. I didn't talk about family much. I focused on work and research. Mara toasted the launch of the scholarship fund over wine. Grandpa's legacy was secure. I saw Dorian once at a gas station. He looked unkempt, pumping cheap gas into an old car. Our eyes met, but he looked away first. Leora unknowingly served me at the airport kiosk. Her name tag was shiny. She took my order mechanically. I paid cash, left no tip, and boarded the plane without saying a word. Mom and Dad sent one holiday card. It came back unopened. True family isn't about blood. True family is about respect. Respect earned and respect returned.